Let's say you want to sing a Chris Cornell song, but your voice is cracking on the higher notes. I mean, you can absolutely lower the key if that's what you're looking for. Go for it. My go-to is always to lower things down an octave. Room by room, patiently I'll wait. But you can't sing a Chris Cornell song like that. I don't know about you, but my wife would probably be the first person to tell me I'm singing the wrong notes there. But if I went for this in the original key, the only way I could hit those notes was to let it break. Right? Because this is far too high for me. I can't sing that in full voice like Chris Cornell can, right? Rock in a hard place. Can't sing it in the original key. Doesn't really sound right when I lower it down. Here's the thing that most singers don't realize though. No amount of vocal exercises is ever going to make you strong enough to connect those two voices, the disconnected, broken high voice or the full lower voice, because this is not a physical issue. I'm Keegan from Foundation Vocal Method, and if you feel like you've only been getting 20% results from the 100% of effort that you've been putting into improving your voice, you're not crazy, it's not your voice, it's not a 1 in a million genetic abnormality, it's because you've fallen into the 20% trap. Now, the things that you physically control, that you can tangibly control in your voice, the things you can flex, the things you can feel, the things you can touch, these actually make up less than 20% of what actually drives your voice. And if you've ever had that feeling of, practicing a scale or going for a song and all of a sudden it feels like you're being choked, right? Right? There's some physical thing going on. It's highly likely you've taken all of your effort and you've directed it into the physical things that you control. They're less than 20% of what's really driving your voice. You got 80% of your potential lying dormant, untapped. So how do we access the rest of our voice? Well, it starts with acoustics. So a lot of singers, when they're struggling with notes like this, the first thing that they do is they clench their belly and they open their mouth as much as they can, rah! And they try and push the sound out. But I'm not talking about barking out these notes just one. I'm talking about singing them sustaining them in a controlled and consistent way so that you can sing the full song in one go. So that you can sing a full set of songs like this in this range and above, maybe your own songs, without your voice cracking and without having to lower the key. Now, if I just open up my mouth and push from the belly, rah, ha, I still can't hit that sound. But this isn't a lack of physical strength in my voice. It's because that sound doesn't exist at that pitch. We need to make subtle changes in our acoustics. And acoustics and resonance make up 40% of what's actually driving your voice. 20% is the physical, tangible stuff that you're in control of, probably what you've been putting all of your effort into. 40% of what's actually driving your voice is actually acoustic and resonance. I like to think of it as the physical stuff is like throwing a baseball, right? And if you're struggling with high notes and you're pushing and straining, you're just trying to throw the ball harder rather than working on how you're actually catching that sound and ringing. Let me give you an easier example of this. Let's say I want to sing the word hey, right? H-E-Y, and I sustain that sound. Hey, and I'm just ringing that sound, right? If I go up in my range, right, and I sing that sound, that vowel, hey, oh, it's getting bigger there, right? Hey, my voice is going to break, right? Hey, I mean, I can probably push that once or twice, but again, we're talking about singing the whole song in one go, doing a full set of the songs like this. Instead, if I make a subtle change to my vowel there, so I'm not talking about pronunciation. I'm not changing the word here. I'm still singing hey, right? If I actually make those subtle changes in the back, in the soft palate, I make this a little wider and I treat it a little bit more like an EH sound, like eh. So hey and head, right? And I sing it right in the back. Same note, same word, slightly different vowel. And suddenly that note sits very differently in my voice. Room, hey! I'm able to sing that in full voice now. And if I apply that same shift in the space in the back to the song, to the Chris Cornell vocal line I was struggling with before at that G, right? Roam by Rome, patiently, I'll wait for you there. Suddenly that G that I was struggling with there, that G note there, right? Sits very differently in my voice. I didn't get stronger. I didn't put 10,000 hours into practicing. I just made the right sound. I shifted those acoustics. I matched my vowel, the frequency of the vowel, to the frequency and the resonance of the pitch. I didn't throw the ball harder. I worked out how to catch it. Now there's one more missing link for most singers out there that don't naturally start with, a super high range. Now I'm not saying that this is going to turn you into Chris Cornell. I'm definitely not Chris Cornell. I don't sing like him. I don't sound like him. There's only one. He was the greatest. But I can now approach these songs in the original key like I've always wanted to, and like the songs deserve. Now the other missing link for most singers is actually reflex. Your reflexes and the involuntary systems in your voice make up the remaining 40% of what's actually driving things behind the scenes. Now you've probably already experienced this before. If you've ever practiced a sound, it's been going okay at home, you've been singing really well one day, and then the next day it's not there. You've done this whole practice session, it's finally clicked, everything's going really great, all of a sudden it's gone the next day. That's your reflexes. That's the involuntary stuff, the central nervous system affecting how your voice is running from day to day in a way that you probably don't realize is happening in the background. You might have even had the experience of, practicing and singing really well at home, but once you get on stage, once you get in the rehearsal room with your buddies, everything goes pear-shaped. Now think about this for a second. Let's say a big grizzly bear jumps out in front of you. What's the first thing you're gonna do? You're gonna brace and clench your belly and you're gonna be defensive, right? Now, do you think there's any reason why your body would prioritize singing sustained, beautiful, lilting notes and allowing you to sing like a bird? No, you're gonna run the fuck away, probably screaming and shouting and grunting for your life, right? That's your nervous system. That's a nervous system response. So when you go for those higher notes, right, and you clench your belly like you're under threat, right? Hey, hey, I'm getting that threat response. Hey, I can't hit those notes. If we avoid that threat response and we keep our ribs out, right, we keep that diaphragm resisted rather than pushing it up, right? Hey, a different pitching system is actually triggered within your voice. Did you know that there's more than one pitching system in your voice? Sure, we've got contraction and thickness. That ain't gonna work for high notes. What we need to do is really stretch the vocal folds. Think about a guitar for a second. Your higher notes, these are tighter and they vibrate faster. Your lower notes have more slack and they vibrate slower and they make a lower pitch. The higher you sing, the more tension you need on your strings, on your vocal folds. So we need to use this tensioning system, and it doesn't happen when you get that threat response. And this is probably why you practice at home and you're sounding okay, but then you get up in front of people and you have a little bit of that threat response. Oh my God, there's so many people here. And you trigger the wrong system and you trigger that threat response in your voice and you can no longer sing the notes that you could sing 15 minutes ago. Now here's where it gets a little bit personal. We're all different people. You're different to me. We have different personalities. We all have different cultural backgrounds and dispositions. We've all had different experiences in our lives. Now, no vocal exercise alone is going to change your natural reflexes. So this can vary wildly from person to person. One person can say, you just do this exercise and you'll be great. You can try that same sound and it's a total shit show. And that's because your nervous system is creating a different response or running at a different level to another singer. But here's the thing. Once you realize that 80% of how your voice is running is on acoustics and these involuntary reflexes. I mean, flex your left vocal fold for me. You can't do it, right? Okay, your dominant pitching system, the cricothyroid. Tilt your larynx for me and stretch the vocal folds. You can't do it, right? These are the dominant systems in a singer's voice. Once you realize, once you start directing your attention to the sounds and the reflexes that are happening in your voice when you're practicing, when you're singing songs, the threat response goes away, the pushing goes away, and the 20% trap goes away. And all of this is something I like to call the 20-40-40 rule. The stuff you control, the physically tangible things that you can touch and flex and the muscles. Yeah, that's a real thing. I'm not saying that there isn't a physical side to singing. Of course there is. But vocal exercises aren't there to make you stronger. I mean, this might be a weird thing to say, but I've actually been singing for longer, for more years than Lane Staley was alive, right? So by rights, I've done more singing in my life. So I should just be stronger. I should just sing better than that guy. Well, of course not. That's not how it works. It's not about strength. It's not really about thousands of hours spent at just drilling the same sounds and banging your head against the wall. Great singers know their acoustics and they know their reflexes. That's why they nail the sounds no matter the setting. Once you recognize your patterns, once you recognize, that you've fallen into that 20% trap, you're going for those high notes, right? And suddenly it feels like you're choking your voice off, right? You've directed all of your energy into the physical side of singing, only making up 20% of what's actually going on. Once you see it, you'll never unsee it. You'll start to identify it in your voice when you're practicing, and you'll start to see new solutions for things, and you'll even start to see your voice in a different way. And before you say, "Oh, Chris Cornell sang higher than that, you suck," it's the same premise for the higher stuff. Again, acoustics and reflex. Instead of struggling and pushing on the high notes, right? There's no amount of vocal exercises is ever going to help me sing in that range, right? We need to dial in our acoustics. There's no time to keep it low. I've been deaf, now I want noise. You stay down, but I won't be quiet. Right? Spoon Man! It's exactly the same premise on the high stuff, but I really, really want to focus in on the notes that you're struggling with right now. The E, the F, the G, maybe the A is where you're at. You work on that stuff, you nail your acoustics and your reflexes in that range, and that high stuff, the door will open to that high stuff in a way you didn't even think was possible previously. Coming from someone that used to just lower everything down an octave, right? Room by room, patiently, right? You can't sing a Chris Cornell song like that. Coming from someone that just used to lower the key like that and be unable to hit half of the notes, like even the first couple of notes in any Chris Cornell song out there, and you got to look at your reflexes, and you have to look at your acoustics, and you got to pull yourself out of the 20% trap. Now, putting 100% of your effort into just 20% of what's actually driving your voice is actually number 2 on this cheat sheet right here, vocal progress killers. Now, these 12 vocal progress killers are holding you back from your full potential as a singer. And if you'd like to work out exactly which one of these 12 vocal progress killers is your vocal progress killer, hit this link to download your free 12 vocal progress killers cheat sheet right now. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. I'm Keegan from Foundation Vocal Method. We are definitely going to talk soon. Get those acoustics and those reflexes dialed in.